You note that from country to country, there are a lot of disparities in wealth, and many of them are extreme. The per capita GDP of China is less than 1/4 that of Japan. That of India is barely 10% of that of Japan. And you offer a number of comparisons like that in Basic Economics. Quoting Basic Economics, many find such disparities both puzzling and troubling. But a more fundamental question might be this: was there ever any realistic chance that the nations of the world would have had similar prospects of economic development?
Yes.
Why is that such a good question?
Because it means you don't have to look for a boogeyman to explain why everybody's not making the same money or having the same wealth.
All right, you talk about a number of factors, including factors as basic as waterways, mountains. Explain geographical differences in economic development.
There are rivers, for example, on all the continents, but they aren't the same rivers. On the Zaire River in Central Africa, which is longer, I think, than the Mississippi, but in a space of 150 miles, there are more than 30 cataracts, and the water falls a total of almost 1,000 feet. The Mississippi River falls at a rate of 4 inches per mile. They are not the same river in terms of being able to transport anything back and forth.
One river can open up an entire continent, the other does no good at all for trade, essentially.
That's right. And as you go into other kinds of things, there are all these anomalies. One I mentioned is that something like 90% of all the tornadoes in the entire world take place in the middle of the United States. Most of the geysers in the entire world are in Yellowstone National Park.
The Earth is a strange planet, it turns out.
We picked the wrong planet, but here we are.
Inequality within the United States. Basic Economics, again, I'm quoting you, Tom. Although people in the top income brackets and the bottom income brackets, the rich and the poor, as they are often called, may be discussed as if they were different classes of people, often they are in fact the same people at different stages of their lives. Close quote.
Yes.
So getting worked up about income inequality is pointless, ill-informed?
Yes, and sometimes it's simply a propaganda trick, depending on who's doing it. I read Piketty's stuff.
Piketty, Thomas Piketty, the French economist, who published a book this year called Capitalism.
Right, and he's a star around the world for doing so. And he talks about how the top 10% are separate from the rest of us, and they are able to do all sorts of nefarious things. And then since then, I've gone and done a little research, and it turns out that 56% of all American households will be in the top 10% at some point or other in their lives, usually when they're older.
Wow. Over half?
And
over half will be in the top. All right.
Yes, and actually, when you get down to the top 1%, it's even more incredible. Of all the people in the top 1%, in the course of a decade, the great majority, are there 1 year. Only 13% are there 2 years. And so we're talking about people who have a spike in income in 1 year for some reason or other. They inherited something.
They sell their company.
They have assets accumulated over the years, and they sell them in that 1 year. I mean, in the year, I haven't checked, but I wouldn't be surprised if I hit my income peak when I sold my house on the Stanford campus, and have never been near that since. No, and of course, it was all absorbed in paying for another house elsewhere. So
welcome to California.
Right.
So Piketty, I'm glad you raised Piketty, because I had a question or two about him. As I understand it, his basic argument is that the return on capital, examined over many decades throughout the Western world, the return on capital exceeds the rate of economic growth. Therefore, holders of capital will get rich faster than anybody else. And holders of capital tend to be consistent over time, one family shifting capital to the next generation to the next. And so you get income inequality, which breeds class distinctions, political tensions, and so forth. And Tom Sowell's answer to this is?
Well, partly what I just mentioned, that over the course of people's lifetime, much of the disparity consists of different people at different stages of their lives.
Right. So there's
And moreover, over time, for example, back in 1951, people reached their peak income between 35 and 44 years of age. And those people in that bracket made about 60% more than people who were in their early 20s. Go forward a few years, and now they're making more than twice as much as people in their 20s. And go forward another decade or so, and now the whole bracket has moved up to 45 to 54. And now they're making 3 times what people in their low. And what it means is that as time goes on, the advantages of youth, namely strength and energy, count for less and less because machines provide the power. But you have to more and more be able to do more complicated things.
experience and knowledge matter more and more,
and
relative to brawn.
Yes, and when you think about it, if we measure adult life at the beginning at 18, then that means that a man who's 40 years old has more than 10 times the experience of a man who's 20 years old.
Right, right.
So there's nothing mysterious about any of it.
And nothing troubling. To you, Paul Krugman in the New York Times, quote, "Mr. Piketty's contribution is serious, discourse-changing scholarship." Somebody get a close-up on the look on Tom's face as I read Paul Krugman. "Serious discourse-changing scholarship, and conservatives are terrified." Close quote. Are you terrified?
Not particularly.
Market failure.
Especially when I discover his errors. Among one of them, for example, he says that under Herbert Hoover, the highest income bracket was 25%. The Internal Revenue record shows that in 1932, the highest income bracket paid 63%. So I'm not sure how many of his voluminous.
You actually checked the footnotes?
Yes.
I'm not sure that's fair.
That will turn you into a cynic in a very short time.